In this lesson, we'll talk about creating Objective-C classes. I put together a simple command line application that you'll find within your working files directory called Objective-C. I wanted to set aside the simulator and user interface for this lesson so we can focus all of our attention just on the code. An Objective-C class defines the attributes and behavior of an object. The analogy I often like to use is to think of the relationship between a blueprint and a house. The blueprint defines the attributes and behavior for a house, but really only in an abstract sense. It's not a real house until someone builds it based on that specification. In Objective-C, a class plays a similar type of role. It defines the attributes and behavior of an object. Let's begin by creating a new Objective-C class. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and open the Objective-C project and highlight the root of its source tree. We'll go up to the File menu and select New, File. And under the Cocoa Touch group, we'll select Objective-C class. Select Next. And we're going to call this object Artist. We want it to be a subclass of NSObject, and select Next. This will ask us where we'd like to save the file, so the default location will be fine. Say Create. And this created two new files on disk. We have artist.h and artist.m. An Objective-C class is always defined within two parts. There's an interface and an implementation. The interface defines the public interface for our class, and this is what other objects will program to. In the interface, we'll define any public methods that we have, potentially any instance variables this class may hold, and then the implementation provides the actual concrete implementation of those methods. We'll begin by looking at our artist.h, which defines the interface. The first thing you'll notice is the @ symbol. The @ symbol plays an important role within Objective-C and always denotes a particular language feature. In this case, we have an @interface and an @end. So the @interface defines the interface. Artist is the name of our class, followed by :NSObject. So this means we're extending from NSObject. NSObject is the root class within the Objective-C language. And this just defines some base behavior that is common to all object types. If we switch over to our artist.m, this is the implementation file. And similar to the interface, we have an @implementation and an @end block. Now this time we have the class name repeated again, but you won't see any extension from a particular class defined here. Instead, what you do see is this #import artist. So this means we're importing the artist file into here, and so we can infer that we're extending from NSObject through doing so. And by importing the artist interface, it also makes any methods or instance variables that class defines available to this class as well. Let's create one additional object. We'll highlight the Objective-C source root once again. This time, instead of using the File menu, we'll use the keyboard shortcut Command-N. This will bring up our template chooser. We'll select Objective-C class, Next. And this object we'll call Album. Once again, we want to extend from NSObject. Select Next. Select Create. And similarly to Artist, we now have an album.h and an album.m. We've now created a couple valid Objective-C classes. At this point, they're really little more than the base objects from which they extend, but it's certainly a start. You should now have a good understanding of what an Objective-C class is and how it's defined.